Before we get started, I'd like to welcome J.C. Howard from Stone Creek Church in Milton, who will lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Let's bow our heads. God of mercy and grace, we come to you this evening. It's with a heart of thanksgiving and a season that's filled with the sights and the sounds of your hope, your peace, and your joy. Father, tonight we lift our prayers to you for our City of Milton Governing Council. We confirm our desire for Milton to be a thriving community of not only economics, but also, and more importantly, I think, compassion and justice. We want to be a community in which everyone can find a place to live, to worship, to work, and to play. And so, Father, we pray for Mayor Lockwood and Council Members Thurman, Kuntz, Lusk, Hewitt, Longoria, and Morig. And we pray for you to send down upon them the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, and that with a steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people in this city. And Father, as we celebrate this holiday season, it's my prayer that the residents of Milton will be able to make a way for you in their hearts, and that the glory of Christ revealed will be a light to everyone to truly love and to care for our neighbors. And it's with our hearts that we pray to you, this name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much for being here. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, December 21st, 2015 to order. This isn't Halloween. Testing.
Yes.
Great. Sue, do you want to try your microphone? See if it...
Good evening, Mayor.
Okay. Sue, if you'll please call the roll and make general announcements.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the December 21st, 2015 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that the individual has filed a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance this evening. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman. Here. Councilmember Matt Kuntz. Councilmember Bill Luss. Here. Councilmember Joe Longoria. Here. Councilmember Rick Morick. Here. And for the record, Councilmember Bert Hewitt is absent. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening, and we're glad you're here. We appreciate you being here tonight. So, Sudi, if you'll please call the first item, the agenda.
First agenda item this evening is approval of the meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 15311.
Okay. I would like to add a executive session to discuss personnel prior to the new business. Anyone else have anything? Staff? Okay. I'll open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, before you take that motion, is there anybody here? I know we have one agenda item that deals with appointing members to CPAC. Is there anybody here that would need to be sworn in? So we don't. Okay. Good.
Okay. We'll leave it alone. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda with the addition of a executive session as prepared by by staff.
Executive session to discuss personnel prior to new business.
Correct.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion from Councilmember Longoria, second by Councilmember Morrig. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see. Next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. And each person who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes for remark. Sudi, do we have any general public comment?
We do have one from Miss Margaret Lutens.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Margaret Lutens, and I live at 3515 Peacock Road, right around the corner from here. And I'm sure you're all beginning to get to know me since I came to my first city council meeting back in December of last year, where I came to advise you of a trash problem that I was dealing with in my neighborhood, as well as my wanting to commend a particular city employee who was doing an outstanding job of assisting me with my problem. That employee was Cindy Eade. And perhaps the mayor and our city manager remember that I met with them regarding my problems and complimented Cindy's outstanding work to them, and she was fired the very next day. I'm just curious why Cindy was fired. She was one of the few people that actually returned my phone calls, who returned my emails, who appeared to be extremely competent and passionate about the work she was doing for the community. Unfortunately, I can't say that about a lot of other staff members at the city. When I spoke about the trash problem back in December, the mayor let the rest of you at council know that I had spoken with him and the city manager. And I had. The only problem is they never talked back to me. I have an email from Friday, November 21st from our city manager letting me know that he was going to look into my problem and get back to me. I'm still waiting. I'm also waiting for a lot of other responses. Prior to Hurricane Patricia hitting the West Coast, where we're expecting a lot of rain, I came to City Hall to find out who does the stormwater engineering here in the city because I had some concerns in my neighborhood. I was given the name of Jim Seabaugh and tried to contact him. Since the beginning of October, prior to the hurricane, I have called. I come to the City Hall once a week to pick up the local newspapers. I've asked for him in person. I have not had a conversation yet with Mr. Seabaugh. He did call me once at 5:55, 5 minutes before quitting time on the Monday before Thanksgiving, did not leave me a message, and has not called me back. Well, I just really don't think this is appropriate interaction with the public, with your citizens, with your taxpayers. When I compare this to what Cindy was providing, there's no comparison. There seems to be a big sweeping underneath the rug here in the city of Milton. I spoke here about the murder that didn't get reported, some sort of clerical error. Was there any investigation into that? At the Secretary of State's office, the person that pushed the wrong button was fired. Was anybody here held accountable? What about the emails from the consultant that were leaked? I haven't heard anything about that. Are we just going to pretend that that didn't happen as well? And I have to question our legal organ newspaper. If when they received these, may not the appropriate thing have been to call the police or perhaps to call the mayor or the city attorney or our city manager and say that they had received these, which obviously were not intended for public view, just like that. It just seems to me that the newspaper, having put this on the front page of their paper, was a rather inappropriate way of handling the situation, and I have to question whether their values represent the values that we here should have in the city. I would suggest that we find another newspaper to do business with. I think that's unacceptable to have put that on the front page of the paper. And of course, I don't know, maybe they did call somebody here at City Hall and they were told to go ahead and put it on the front page. Without a statement from the city, we are just left to draw our own conclusions for what has happened. So again, I urge you to investigate. And in regards to Mr. Seabaugh not calling me, I have to wonder, is there a double standard? Is it that I'm not from here? Is it where I'm from? Is it my gender? I have yet to hear from Mr. Seabaugh, but one of my neighbors sends an email to Carter Lucas over the weekend about the very same issue that I'm concerned about and got an email response and a promise to come look at it the very next business day. So I urge you to take a look at some of these issues. I just wanted to bring the fact that we need to do some housekeeping right here, whether we need a change in office procedures or a change in personnel. I think it's something that needs to be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any more public comment?
That's all, sir.
Bill?
I'll make a comment.
Sure.
Ms. Luton's has been up here several times with a lot of the same issues. Can you and Chris get together with her, and kind of address some of these? I'm sure she's going to be back if she doesn't get a response to these.
We certainly can.
Yeah.
Customer Lusk, I sent an email asking for a meeting to occur that was rejected by Ms. Luton, so I don't know. I can ask again.
Yeah, we certainly
Maybe
have had meetings and certainly try to do everything we can.
I
But
know she keeps coming back with the same issues. I want to make sure
I'll be glad to.
we're taking care of her, too.
I'll be glad to have another meeting and give her the facts again on all this. So. Okay. Chris, I'll let you set
I'll
that
reach
up.
out again by email tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll let you know what response I get.
Okay, thanks. Any more public comment, too?
That's all, sir.
Okay. All right, we can move on to the consent agenda.
Our first item is approval of the November 9th, 2015 work session council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 15-312. Next is approval of the November 16th, 2015 regular city council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 15-313. Next is approval of the financial statements for the period ending November 2015. Agenda item number 15-314. Next is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Pond and Company for State Route 9 at Bethany Bend Signal Modification Design. Agenda item number 15-315. Approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Brumbelow Reese and Associates, Inc. for additional survey work for Providence Park. Agenda item number 15-316. Our sixth and final consent agenda item this evening is approval for the execution of a contract with Extra Mile Auto Tire and Service as an additional vendor for vehicle maintenance of the police fleet. Agenda item number 15-317.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion from Councilmember Luss, second from Councilmember Thurman for approval of the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Mr. Mayor, just very
Yep.
quickly,
Okay.
forgive me, I just wanted to mention one thing to the council before you actually take your official action. Later in the agenda, you will see a conflict announcement and request for waiver by the council related to the Association of Pond and Company related to the State Route 9. That is on your consent agenda. I wanted to mention it to you before you actually vote on the consent agenda, but this is where I tell you out loud that my firm does from time to time work with Pond, and in fact we jointly are working together with some other jurisdictions. I thought it appropriate to tell you that before we go off and engage them in a contract. Mr. Mayor, that's all.
Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Sudie, if you'll please call our next item as we move into reports and presentation.
Our next item is a proclamation recognizing Principal Nancy J. Murphy's contributions to the citizens of Milton.
Okay, I should go back when the city was first formed, which 9 years ago. I had the honor to work with Nancy over at Summit Hill. Also, my son got redistricted from at 4th grade to 5th grade over to Summit Hill, and as a lot of kids, and my wife was concerned, didn't want to change, but we went with it and tried the change and had a great experience. So had a great experience there at Summit Hill, obviously under Nancy's leadership. So tonight I'm honored and pleased to be able to present a proclamation for recognizing Principal Nancy J. Murphy's contribution to the citizens of Milton. So I'm going to read this proclamation first, and then I'm going to ask Nancy and family to step forward. Whereas Summit Hill Elementary School is consistently one of the top performing elementary schools in the state of Georgia, and whereas Summit Hill Elementary School Principal Nancy Murphy is retiring at the end of this term, after more than 9 years of service to the North Fulton and to the Milton community, and whereas during her tenure at Summit Hill, student enrollment grew to well over 1,000 students, making it one of the largest elementary schools in Fulton County until Birmingham Falls opened, and whereas Ms. Murphy has worked for Fulton County Schools for more than 24 years, and whereas her extensive education career began as a student bus driver in Alamance County, North Carolina, and included time as an art teacher in North Carolina, New Orleans, and New Jersey, and an instructor for Kennesaw State and Georgia State universities, as well as national faculty member in the Smithsonian Institute. And whereas Ms. Murphy's leadership style has epitomized the school's mission to work passionately and collaboratively to inspire every student's success in life and learning. And whereas Ms. Murphy's work has inspired many students, parents, and educators to be better citizens, making more significant contributions to the community, enhancing Milton's quality of life. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Milton, hereby recognize and congratulate Principal Nancy J. Murphy for her 9 years of service to the residents of the City of Milton and for 30 years of service in education. And that's given under our hand and seal of the City of Milton, Georgia, on the 21st day of December 2015. And I just got to say, we always hear about what a great quality of life Milton has, and everybody wants to move here and live here, but that's one of the big reasons is people like Ms. Murphy. So if you would come forward and if the council would come to present this.
Come get in front of me. There you go.
Okay, Sudi, if we can move on to our first presentation.
First item is consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 4, alcoholic beverages, to provide for sales of wine and/or beer by the package by licensed retail consumption dealers. Agenda item number 15318.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the first presentation item as read.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Kuntz, second from Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Okay, so we have no items under public hearing, so we'll move to our zoning agenda. Sudi, if you'll please read the rules and sound the first items.
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council consider a zoning agenda. These items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. Before beginning your presentation or comment, please identify yourself by name, address, and organization if applicable. Our first zoning item this evening is consideration of RZ 1525, 13201, Deerfield Parkway by Inwood Holdings, LLC, to rezone from T5 Limited to A, medium density apartments for the existing 356-unit apartment development, North Park Apartments. Agenda item number 15305. First presentation was at the December 7th City Council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you.
Before we begin,
Okay.
I'm going to need to recuse myself from this agenda item due to possible business conflict.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There we go. Okay. This is an aerial showing the site under consideration outlined in red. I'm gonna okay. The subject site contains 24.57 acres and is developed with a multifamily apartment development consisting of 356 units. The applicant, Inwood Holdings, LLC, is requesting a change from the current T5 limited designation to A, medium-density apartments. As stated in the letter of intent, the application does not seek to change any of the uses or improvements to the property, but to address issues of the property's legal nonconforming use to allow the sale of the property. The applicant has also stated the property will not be redeveloped under the proposed A, medium-density apartments, but any redevelopment would comply with the T5 limited classification. The subject site was originally zoned medium-density apartments. The City of Milton adopted the Deerfield Form-Based Code and associated regulating plan in April 2013. Under the Form-Based Code, the subject site was designated as T5 Limited. Under this designation, multifamily residential developments are required to be developed with other uses such as retail or office. Can you move the slide, please? Well, let me just continue. Based on the current zoning of T5 Limited, it was determined by the city attorney that if more than 60% of each structure is destroyed, it could not be rebuilt to the current configuration. Thus, the applicant's request back to the A medium-density apartments is requested to meet the lender's requirement to service the loan. Based on the facts that the multifamily development currently exists, staff recommends approval conditional of RZ 15-25. Planning Commission reviewed this application at its meeting of November 18th, and they unanimously approved it conditionally. The recommended conditions for this application are as follows. To the owner's agreement to restrict the use of the subject property as follows. To the existing 356-unit multifamily dwellings and accessory uses and structures at a maximum density of 13.98 units per acre. To the owner's agreement to the following site development considerations. To the site plan received by the Community Development Department on September 30th, 2015. And if the subject site is redeveloped in the future, it shall be developed with a T5 limited Deerfield form-based code zoning standards. And that essentially is my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And the applicant's lawyer is also in the audience to answer questions as well.
Okay. Are there any questions for Kathy right now? Joe?
So Kathy, just want to confirm this is a technical situation,
Correct.
and we're basically aiding the owner of the property to either refinance or comply with the financing restrictions that he's got in place. And so this isn't really any type of material change. It's just something that allows them to complete a process.
That is correct, sir.
And if something were to happen to the property and there were going to be some kind of redevelopment, everything would flip back to the T5.
Correct.
Okay.
And from what I understand, just basically, it's grandfathered as it is. It was approved when it was built. If something were to happen, a fire or whatever, obviously their insurance company and the finance company would want to rebuild it as is, or bring it back to where it was. So it's, as you said, a technicality. So.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no more questions from staff, we'll open up for those that will speak in favor.
Our first speaker is Carl Westmoreland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Carl Westmoreland. My address is 3343 Peachtree Road. Ms. Fields has done a good job of explaining this. I want to be respectful of your time. Port Alumis with Inwood is also here if you've got questions. But as she said, and as you clarified with the questions, this is really a technicality to address the nonconforming status to allow sale and injection of additional funds to improve the property. So nothing's going to be done differently. I think most importantly, as the conditions say, if it's redeveloped, it'll be redeveloped under the existing City of Milton category. So we're not allowing any more units. We're not allowing the units to be rebuilt. It really just addresses the nonconformity. And with that, we'll be glad to answer questions, but would appreciate your consideration.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Westmoreland? Okay. Do we have any other speakers in support?
That's all, sir.
Do we have any speakers in opposition?
None, sir.
Okay. Well, then I'll close the hearing. If there's any more questions or council discussion, I'll open that up. If not, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to approve RZ 15-25, 13,201 Deerfield Parkway by Inwood Holdings, LLC, to rezone from T5 limited to A, medium density apartments for the existing 356-unit apartment development, North Park Apartments. This is agenda item number 15-305.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Luss, second from Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous.
With one abstention.
Okay. Okay. City, if you'll please call next item.
Next item is consideration of RZ 15-26 to create a new use permit for alternative housing for seniors in AG1 and single-family residential districts. Agenda item number 15-306. First presentation was heard at the December 7th City Council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the city clerk said, we did discuss this last week at our council work session on December the 7th, and at that time there were several comments and requests for some modifications to the proposed draft that was before you. So staff did revise the draft, and you should have it in front of you this evening. It's the date on the bottom is 12/17/15. And what we did, let me pardon me, just go over with you the changes and the highlights that of the points that I'd like to make. Under A, under required districts, we did include several districts that you see there: AG1, R1, R2, R2A, R3, R3A, CUP, T2, T3, and T4. And that really is a conglomeration of not only just 1 acre zoning districts, but there's also a 2 acre zoning district in there, and then there are some 18,000 square foot zoning districts in terms of single family density. The reason we use this list is because this is the same list that we use for the group home for children that's currently on the books. So we felt the precedent was there for that, and so and certainly we can modify this list, but that was the starting point with that. In terms of standards, we did discuss this last week about that we're limiting to persons 55 years of age and above, and I think our city attorney explained to us that that's the HUD definition and perfectly appropriate to use. Under standards, we have said as follows: the owner of the subject property may reside on the site. I know there was discussion last week about whether it should be shall or may, and we felt that we heard may, and that, so I want to bring that to your attention to make sure indeed you're comfortable with that. Number 3, it says that the home shall be approved and licensed by the state of Georgia or any agency through which it acts, including number of residents, but not to exceed 8. And as you remember, we had the discussion last week about how many should be allowed. We had suggested 6, and that 6 actually came from the fact that from the communities that we surveyed, most of them required 6 or less. We did check with the state to see what the requirement with the state was, and I will read that to you. We're proposing that it be limited to 8, but it could be more, and let me read you what the state says in regard to this. The state really looks to the size of the structure, so you could, in essence, end up with more than 8. So let me just read this to you, if I may. The number of residents you can have in your home is dependent on several factors. The home must provide a bathroom for every 4 residents and a tub shower for every 8 residents. The home must provide a living room, a dining area, a kitchen, and a bedroom for all residents and any staff and family members who live in the home. The number of residents you can accommodate in each bedroom, up to a maximum of 4 residents, is based on the size of the bedroom. At least 80 square feet of usable floor space per resident. Closet and bathroom space is not included in the square footage requirement. The home must also have a fire inspection, and this inspection can also determine how many residents you can have. Local requirements may also restrict the number of residents. So the state essentially uses a square footage for a structure, depending on the size of the structure. What we said in our standards, we said that we use the state requirements, but limit it to 8. So again, that's certainly open for consideration. Those essentially were the changes that we made to the draft from last week's draft that you saw, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
I'd just like to add, so basically when you're talking about the numbers and the state allows, it's based on each individual situation. There's
Correct.
not necessarily a max. It just depends on the structure.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Questions? Matt?
Who enforces that number? Does the city goes there? Would the state do that with their inspections?
That would be a function of the state licensing authority. Unless from a zoning point of view, during the use permit, that if we had a number in there that we tied it to, we would certainly, from a code enforcement point of view, enforce that as well.
Okay, Karen?
There have been several news stories lately about some, I guess, South Fulton group homes where there have been some abuse taking place where a group owned 4 or 5 of the homes. What do we do to make sure that doesn't happen if we don't require the owner to reside on the home themselves?
I think that goes back to the state licensing authority, and maybe our city attorney can also weigh in on it too. But I think,
I just
don't know if
I
there's
don't want
any
us to be
other
in the
comments.
news because
Yes.
somebody has 4 or 5 of the group homes here in Milton that there is abuse going on. So,
Karen, I'm a little confused by your question. I think it's a good question, number one. But what does the owner of the residence being on the property have to do with whether or not abuse takes place? Because I think that could happen with him on or off.
well, it could happen, but in this situation that's been making the news, it's owners having 4 or 5 group homes and really running them as a business rather than what we intend for them to be, which is really an alternative living arrangement for seniors. But I think sometimes if somebody is living there, they're more likely to take a little more personal care of the property and the residence than if they have 4 or 5 of them and they're running it as a business.
I certainly can agree with Karen's point, but also to Joe's point, unfortunately, cases happen whether an owner or not. Sometimes you'll see a daycare where, the owners are on site all the time and something happens. So obviously that's an unfortunate situation. So we would hope that whether an owner's there or not, that, if there was anything that we could report and have the state back up. But Joe?
Yeah, but to further to Karen's question, the idea of oversight, the idea of licensing, those things are done at a state level, and they don't actually, the city, other than allowing the use, doesn't really get involved in any of the, management or oversight of that type of a business.
That's correct. If you should limit it to a certain number of residents, we certainly could check on that because that would be a condition of the use permit.
Okay.
And I'd like to just address the number of residents. While I certainly don't want this to become a big business or something like that, I have an issue with specifically across the board limiting the number. I like the idea based on the structure, the amount of property, and as the state does it, because, again, I see this as not only a good avenue for folks to have a different option rather than going into an assisted living home or another, but more of a home-like atmosphere. But also, if it's, say, a larger property or larger structure, it might financially feasibly need to be, more than 8 people or whatever, as long as it fits the requirements for the state. And if it's a big piece of property, it could blend in and, just like the special events facility, Little River Farms or whatever, this might be another option to keep some land and another use rather than a future subdivision. So, again, that's my perspective is I certainly would want it to be within the state regulations and guidelines for the number of residents, but, as a special use permit or whatever, where we would look at it on a case by case, depending on the property, and obviously the structure would have to meet what the requirements are. Rick?
And I guess to Joe's point, we would be reviewing these one by one, just like we would do with any special use permit. Right?
That is correct.
So we could look and we could say, no, for this one, we think it should be X number of people based upon size, the lot size, or whatever, but that would be part of the review process.
That's my understanding, yes.
Bill?
On that same point, is the occupancy limitation there the only exception to the state requirements then?
The way we have structured this, it really follows the state requirements. And the only overlay, so to speak, over that would be that if you wanted to or not, you could put a restriction on how many clients could reside there.
Because I think, too, a lot of folks, we're tempted to typically be very conservative on zoning issues or whatever, but and worried about, noise and crowds and traffic. But, in a facility like this, typically, it's going to be a whole lot less cars and traffic and noise than it is a regular family home because the majority of residents aren't going to be driving, so there won't be cars. Bill?
Yeah, I think the size of the parcel should really be taken into consideration, maybe in a special use permit or an exception. Maybe it's the same, the analogy that we use for 1 horse per acre. Maybe we get more people per acre.
And I do have to make a correction in that from a zoning perspective, we would be looking at parking requirements. We would be setting those, and we do have in here a requirement for distance. So that's on the zoning side of the regulatory side as opposed to the state licensing side.
So we would make sure, you would make sure that parking is adequate.
That would be part of the
Setbacks,
conditions for the use
distances.
permit. That is correct.
Okay. Joe?
So with normal special use permits, once they're granted, they're basically permanent. Okay? There's a situation that we should consider here where the licensing of the facility for this specific use could be taken away based on issues, unforeseen issues. Is there any concept that we could lend to making the use permit coincide with the ability for the property to be licensed by the state? I would hate to be, I guess, out of whack on that. I know that it doesn't necessarily mean just because the use permit is available, if it can't be operated based on the state issues, then it can't be operated that way. But something doesn't seem congruous with that concept.
Can you tie in the use permit with the actual owner of the property? And then also, obviously, if they were not living up to the state's regulations and, there'd be a chance to revoke the permit, would that be an option?
I think the use permit's going to travel with the land.
With
So
the land,
if you
okay.
have the use and you allow the use and the use exists and then becomes not legal, then a different person or different entity legally performing those services could continue to do so because that use would travel with the land. But I don't think that it reverts back to agricultural land, for
Right.
example, if all of a sudden
That makes sense, yeah.
a particular...
So once provided, it's just going to stay there.
Correct.
Okay.
But the caveat would be, of course, that they would get a license from the state.
Right, and that's going to be true no matter
Right.
what. So, okay.
But is your concern...
I was
what's
more or
your
less
concern?
thinking out loud, so I'm okay with the way it is.
Anybody else?
I agree with you, though, that if it's a large piece of land with a lot of acreage around it, I don't see why we would want to limit it just to 8.
If it were 10 acres and they wanted 10 or 12 people, but, that's a whole lot better than 10 new homes, I think, so as far as for the community.
Are we going to put language in that would allow it to be flexible based on
What,
I think what
What
I
you're hearing
recommend
from
that you do
council-
there is in number 3, just have it read, the home shall be approved and licensed by the state of Georgia or an agency through which it acts, period. And get rid of everything behind the period, and that would accomplish that.
Yeah.
does that make sense, everybody?
And then we could still limit it if we felt like
When it comes
it needed to be
when it
limited at
comes
the time
before
of
us,
use permit.
correct.
Right.
Okay.
So the use permit would be specific. They would be requesting how
specific
many
property
people
and-
for that facility. Here's what they would be asking for, and that would be part of the review process.
They have a plan, the structure, everything.
Right.
So you-
Parking, all that stuff.
Okay.
Exactly.
The only question I still have, and maybe I was thinking of something else and you've already decided this, is the council good with the owner of the subject property may reside on site, or do you think that may should be a shall?
I'm okay with May.
I'm fine with May.
I think if that's an issue related to the comment that Karen brought up here, possibly you get above a certain number of people, you're going to have a caretaker there of some sort, I would imagine. I think that probably would address Karen's issue.
I would also hope that the community polices itself too, with folks, not residents, families, and employees, and as well as if there is something going on. Again, Karen's got a very valid point, but I don't know that whether the owner lived there or not, you could have a bad owner living there, and you could probably have the same issue. So,
But again, we're not looking at assisted living. This is independent living, senior housing as we defined it at the work session.
That's right.
I've got a question for the city attorney. When we issue a use permit, is it possible to condition it to a certain owner, or can you only have the use permit? Does it always have to travel with the land?
The standard answer I give to that is that the conditional use permit travels with the land and can't be
You can't condition it to
just a certain particular.
What I was
user.
trying to do is try to keep one person from owning a whole bunch of them that becomes a commercial business, and keep somebody
I
from.
think the one way you would have that, though, I mean, I think that perhaps when you receive the applications on a case-by-case basis, that would be another point of discussion by the council with respect to the number of them you have in the city owned by that individual. But of course, they may own others outside of the city.
Right.
Right. So, right now the language in the version that I received has may. That's just a policy issue, may versus shall. That is exactly what y'all have been debating this evening, is the merits of each. But Councilman Thurman, I'm not aware of the ability to condition it such that it prevents any other user from coming on and otherwise taking advantage of the company.
Is there a way legally, just as though, let's say, a restaurant that sells and they have to come back and renew a alcohol license in the new owner's name, is there a way legally to where if a property was sold or an operator and the new owner had to at least come before us for approval, or is that?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
It's exactly what I think, Councilman Thurman was getting to, and I'm just not aware of a way to structure that, because this isn't a licensure issue. This is a cup issue. So the control over that particular facet of this is going to rest with the state, that presumably would then look and license each successive operator on that piece of property, but not you. You're dealing with primarily land use.
Okay.
So, Kathy, or Chris, or Ken, whoever, the multi-tenant aspect of a piece of property, is something that's granted by right by the property. Nobody needs to get special permission to rent his property to someone else, correct? If the property has two residents, in other words, two leases are executed against the same property, is that something that we cover under our ordinances today that would prevent this? What I'm driving at is we're covering one aspect of how this use would be engaged for a particular property. Is there other ways into this that we're not thinking of, that we need to get to Karen's point, to protect the operation on the property? Is there something else that we need to worry about?
Well, we could look through that. I can't point to the specific site, so I don't want to cite of the code. But there's a portion in our code that limits the number of non-related people that can live in the same structure. And I don't know what that. I'd have to go pull that.
Okay. Well, we don't have to tie that to this. I was just thinking maybe there's some additional homework we need to do there.
But I guess the point to some of these concerns, this is not a blanket approval moving forward. They would come before us, and on an individual basis, we could also address, or the council could address, concerns that they feel are warranted towards that specific property. Correct?
Yeah, and I'd like for the city attorney to look into what kind of conditions we might be able to place on the property to try to avoid some of these issues that we know we want, when a use permit is granted. So.
And Councilman Thurman, so if you could just again capture what is the primary concern that you have, the notion
that it becomes more of a commercial business type thing where you've got one person owning 4 or 5 of them, and that it becomes a business rather than what I believe we intend it to be, which is an alternative living arrangement for a small group of seniors.
Understood.
Okay. So, where are we with council? Do we want to make a motion with some changes, clarifications, or are we waiting for more information to do that, or is that information that could come after the fact before we'd have one, possibly have one of these in front of us?
With what we've captured already, could we vote with a verbal, or were there amendments? Or do you think it's
The only amendment
enough
that
change?
the only amendment that I've heard tonight from what was presented to you tonight, which had a couple of amendments based upon the work session, would be just the removal of the words in number 3, including number of residents, but not to exceed 8.
Right.
Other than that, I've heard that. What I've heard is that the council likes what you have sitting in front of you, except for that phrase.
Do we have any public comment on this, or?
I don't believe so. We don't have any.
We do
public
not.
comment. Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I move to approve RZ 15-26 to create a new use permit for alternative housing for seniors in AG1 in single-family residential districts. Agenda item number 15-306 with the language change to remove any type of number of resident restrictions and just keep it in line with the state licensing requirements.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion by Councilmember Longoria, second by Councilmember Kunitz, and a third by Councilmember Lusk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Ken, I did not close the public hearing, but we did not have any comment. Do I need to go back?
Just
Okay.
move on. Yep.
Okay. We've got our final zoning agenda. Sudi, will you please call this item?
Final item is consideration of RZ 1527 to amend the signs, Article 16 of the zoning ordinance, Chapter 64, agenda item number 15307. First presentation was at the December 7th City Council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 18th of this year, the United States Supreme Court issued their opinion on Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona. In a nutshell, the decision appears to be taking the position by the court that any distinctions in the sign code that offer favorable treatment or less favorable treatment based on the message of the sign may constitute a constitutional infirmity. Based on this conclusion from the court, the attached text amendment corrects these infirmities in the current sign code. The amendments indicated in red represent the necessary changes to the city's sign ordinance necessary to be consistent with the Supreme Court's ruling. In addition, staff has included some minor changes that are highlighted in yellow. And most of these changes essentially we categorize as sort of cleaning up some language, except for one change, which appears on page 4 under definitions in terms of window sign. We have deleted the portion of the definition that included any signage within 5 feet of the interior of the window and stated that any signage visible from inside the structure and is reasonably discernible from the closest public or private road exterior of the structure is considered a window sign. And this is to obviate the issue that we had with the Children's Learning Center in terms of that bright sign that you could see through the window. This will correct that from happening in the future. And I'm certainly available for any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Kathy?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. All right. I'll open for motions.
I make a motion to approve RZ 15-27 to amend the signs, Article 16 of the zoning ordinance, Chapter 64, agenda item number 15-307.
Second.
Okay. I've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Thurman, second from Councilmember Morrig. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. I assume we had no public comment on that.
We did not, sir.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, I move we adjourn for executive session.
Second.
Second to discuss personnel.
to discuss personnel.
I have a motion from Councilmember Longoria, second from Councilmember Thurman to move into executive session for personnel discussion. To the audience, we'll be right back. Okay. Do I have a motion that we reconvene?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, a second that we reconvene. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Sudi, if you'll please call first new business item.
First item is consideration of a resolution appointing a member to the City of Milton Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee from District 3, Post 1, and appointing an elected official to CPAC. Agenda item number 15319, Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. I'll move over to Joe.
Yep.
Want
So, Mayor and Council, I'm nominating Steve Smith for membership on the CPAC. And I think a lot of you guys know Steve Smith. He's been around for a while. He's a resident of Crooked Creek and has been for over 15 years. He's a real estate professional, has been working in the real estate business for quite some time. So he's got a certain amount of knowledge and understanding of the subject matter at hand. He worked with me on the Crooked Creek Homeowners Association for about 5 years, so I can speak to his level-headedness and his ability to help drive agendas such as CPAC is going to deal with. He's a graduate and an avid Florida State fan, and in spite of that, I'm going to go ahead and nominate him for membership on CPAC.
I'll second it.
Well, okay. Is that a motion? You probably need a motion.
No, I can't be the
Yeah,
one to
we need a
move that.
motion, then a second.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to nominate Mr. Steve Smith for District 3, Post 1 for CPAC.
Okay.
Second the motion.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Kuhn, second from Councilmember Moore. I'll give you another third, Bill, if you want. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Sudi, if you'll please call the next
Mr.
item.
Mayor,
Oh,
if I could,
go
before we
ahead.
move on, the other part of this resolution was to appoint an elected official to CPAC. If you could
Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
formalize
I'm
that
sorry.
for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, we need to appoint an elected official, and I would like to nominate Councilmember Thurman to represent us on the board, the CPAC. So if there's support for that, I'd ask for a motion and a second.
I move that we allow Karen Thurman to serve on CPAC is it as our representative, or is just to fill a
Elected.
Just have to
okay,
have
just to
elected
serve
official.
on CPAC.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, got a motion from Councilmember Longoria, second from Councilmember Lusk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Sudi, if you please call the next item.
Next item is consideration of a resolution appointing or reappointing members to Milton Groves Green for the City of Milton. Agenda item number 15320, Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. What we have before us is the slate for the officers with Chairman Jack Linden, Vice Chair Margaret Lamb, and Chair Emeritus John McPhail. I don't know if staff wants to comment on the process of this, that we just every year need to.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can tell you, according to Milton Groves Green bylaws, that there's a requirement that in the fourth quarter of the calendar year that Milton Groves Green submit, to take a vote and appoint within their organization members to serve in certain roles. Those are then transmitted to the council for your consideration and ratification or further consideration. Milton Groves Green met last Thursday. These nominations were made, and this is the slate of officers that Milton Groves Green recommends that the council consider.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Chris, could you refresh my memory? First of all, I value very highly the work that Milton Groves Green does for the city, but they seem to be unique when it comes to committees in the city. Not in the city. I don't know what for the city. In other words, we've got all kinds of committees where I can't think of a one where we have to adopt a resolution in terms of the board appointees. I mean, we individually nominate people to be and serve on committees. And so, and I know this was done way before I joined the council, so maybe this is just helping me understand. And I've voted on this before. I just couldn't tell anybody why we do it this way with Milton Grows Green.
I can tell you that the committee was formed in 2008 by resolution and then amended in 2014 by a different resolution that adopted the current bylaws. This was a structure that was recommended by the board itself. There are 3 positions that are the 3 that are before you tonight, as well as subcommittee positions. There's 4 of those for a total of 7. But those you'll see every other year because they're 2 years at a time. So this was as a recommendation of the committee. I can tell you that it is, yes, to your answer to your question, it's different than most of the committees that we have in that typical committees, each council member appoints somebody, whether that's by district or at large. But this one does travel a bit differently in its appointment structure.
Was there something about the subject matter that they were dealing with, or the recommendations that they make to the city, that made this more unique, that made this have to exist this way? Was there, again, going back to when we first started forming committees and getting our citizens involved in helping the city manage itself, was there some extenuating circumstances that made this structure do a better job or make more sense or something like that? Or did it just sort of happen?
I have a direct answer for that question.
It's almost like, what's the difference between, say, a planning commission or BZA or another committee versus Milton Grows Green?
Right.
Why is it structured so differently?
It's more of I guess, a niche field. I mean, I'm going to think out loud, which is a dangerous thing to do. But, when you're looking for a planning commissioner or board of zoning appeals member, those are more quasi-judicial in their function, where we kind of have a Parks and Rec Advisory Board as well as Milton Disability Awareness Committee and Milton Grows Green that all operate probably a little bit differently than those 4 or 5 quasi-judicial boards that we have.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I realized that the structure was in place. It just, I never understood exactly how it came to be that way. So, okay.
We certainly could look at that, structure too, if the council wanted to. Or not.
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily saying anything's broken or anything like that. It was more curiosity because it's always seemed weird that we get to this point in the year and we're making these kind of resolutions for Milton Grows Green, yet we don't do that for other boards.
It is a unique one that causes there to be a resolution brought forward every year for the council to consider. If you'd like to change that or move away from that or amend the appointment structure, you certainly have the authorities of the council to do that.
I'd like to look at it. Let me ask you this. If we were to, say, defer this and look at that, can Milton Grows Green continue on? What would happen if we didn't approve that tonight? Can they continue on under the same structure?
Advised me that if you don't approve this tonight, then it would just continue as it's currently structured with the current officers and the positions and roles that they serve in today.
Until a change was made, it just continues as is.
Correct.
Unless the
Correct.
city attorney wants to advise differently.
I do not.
Okay, so the default, it would just stay as it is.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Chris, could you go over also the list of services that Milton Grows Green provides for the city?
You mean to refer to their bylaws? Is that what you're asking for me to?
Well, sure.
I can tell you that the purpose of the committee shall be to raise awareness and to influence environmental choices in ways that improve the health and quality of life for Milton residents, to identify policies and practices that promote sustainable development, protect natural resources, and preserve Milton's rural character, to foster initiatives and incentives that encourage sustainability within the city government and among its residents and businesses, to execute environmental initiatives such as, but not limited to, the Earth Day Festival, Evergreen Schools Program, Adopt a Road Litter Collection, Adopt a Stream Water Quality Monitoring, bulky trash and recycling events, household paint and chemical collections, the National Wildlife Federation Community Habitat Certification Project, Rivers Alive Waterway Cleanup Program, and the Atlanta Regional Commission's ARC's Green Community Certification. To encourage sustainable development that preserves green space and natural vistas in collaboration with other local environmental entities, to identify other possible certifications and/or designations for the city to pursue in order to advance its commitment towards sound environmental practices, And finally, to develop creative strategies to bring diverse expertise and interest groups together to provide solutions to Milton's environmental challenges.
Do you think, according to your opinion, that they have basically done what we've asked them to do in those bylaws?
Well, you're asking for an opinion, and that's always difficult because mine might not be what everybody else's is.
Sure.
I can tell you that I look towards the projects that I enumerated in number 4 as really the bulk of what Milton Grows Green does, which is when I listed out the Earth Day Festival, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe they and do appreciate. I believe they do those things and truly appreciate what they bring to the table on those events.
I would agree. I would agree with that too. I think they do a great job. Okay, anybody else?
I would agree with your agreement too. I think they've done a fantastic job out there. Appreciate all of the volunteers that volunteer for any committee.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, well, we've got need a motion here to either approve, deny, or defer this item. The only discussion was if we wanted to look into a structure later. If we were to defer it, everything would keep as on par with the way it is, or we can approve it tonight. So I'll just open up for a motion. Matt?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 15-320. It's consideration of a resolution appointing or reappointing members to Milton Grows Green for the city of Milton.
Second motion.
Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve this board and the slate. And any discussion? I would just say my concern, I would like to look at the structure. So if I don't approve that, if I don't vote for that, it's only because of that, not any reflection on the board or the group or the board or the actions that Milton Grows Green has performed today. So.
If we're going to look at the structure, I'm not sure why we have to rush to approve this because, I mean, is there anything that they're currently doing for us that they won't be continuing to do for us under the current officers as it?
I don't believe so.
If we deferred this?
I don't believe so, no. The board could speak for the group could speak for itself, but I don't believe that there would be any limitation placed on what they did because of either action or non-action on this agenda item tonight.
Okay. Any other discussion? Or I've got a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I believe it was 4 to oppose 2. So that fails.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we defer this item to look at the structure of Milton Grows Green under the assumption that the current officers and current work they're doing will continue.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion for deferral from Councilmember Thurman and second from Councilmember Longoria.
Could we specify a date certain for this deferral, just so that we have some time to bring it back? If you're suggesting we're in this holiday season, if we could get to the second meeting of January, that would be.
Yeah, that's fine. What is the second meeting of January?
Must be about the 18th. Oh, 20th. It's probably a Wednesday.
20th, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion? Matt?
And the only reason why I just don't think it's right to take volunteers that have work to do what we've asked them to do and then make them wait at the time we're asking them to wait. I understand what you're saying, what you're doing, but I just disagree.
Okay. Now, what I understand the discussion is not necessarily about the officers, but the structure. So
Right.
I don't think that I would hope they wouldn't be taken.
Well, yeah, and Matt, I think you bring up a good point, but my understanding and the reason I asked the question is Milton Grows Green is a group of concerned volunteers and citizens that exists outside of any requirement to do or converse with or deal with agendas for the city. In other words, if the city didn't engage Milton Grows Green as a committee for the city, they would still exist. So I'm not too worried about that part because I think that their concerns will still be their concerns tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and that's why they get together. That's why they talk about and engage in what they do.
But they will still continue operating as a
With the same
City of
officers
Milton
today.
committee with this deferral, correct? I mean, we're not doing anything to the committee itself. We're just saying let's defer the officers till we're sure of how if we want to make changes to the committee, but they'll continue operating just as they currently are operating.
That's correct.
Well, my only question, I'm sorry, the way I understand it, their committee got together and made an election with regards to who their members would be appointed, et cetera, and according to the standards that we set for them coming to this meeting tonight, if we wanted as a council to have a structure as far as this goes, and we were to look into this, we can do that at any given point in time over the course of the next year. I just want to make sure our volunteers know they have an expectation that's being met when they do what we ask them to do. As a council, we got to give that leadership capability to let our volunteers know what that expectation is, in my mind. That's just what I'm saying. But anyway, my thoughts. Go ahead.
I mean, none of the other committees do we even approve the officers, do we?
No.
The bulk of the other committees that we have typically have one appointee per council.
Which we all have
Yeah,
approved
right.
individually.
Right.
CPAC.
Milton Disability Awareness Committee might be a different example, but
Point of order, and we've got Jack Linden has raised his hand to speak. Certainly willing if the council and Mr. City Attorney, if the council would, allow that or protocol, can that happen, Mr. City Attorney?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this isn't an announced public hearing. There's really no procedural precedent to do that. It's up to the council. If the council wants to take a motion to allow an individual to speak off the floor, you'd have the right. But my recommendation is that is a change in protocol from which I'm used to, is what I would say. I'd recommend against it.
Okay. All right.
My history on this council has seen plenty of opportunities for citizens to talk when they want to talk, and we hardly ever stifle anybody. So I would have a hard time saying that we can't let somebody speak.
So I think what you're saying, Ken, it's not our typical.
I think what I said,
but
Mr. Mayor,
legally
was the council has the
can.
right to do that.
Okay.
I'm suggesting simply allowing someone to come off the floor and speak. We have seen that recently in some work sessions, and I seem to recall the council taking exception to it.
Okay. I'll put up with, Mr. Linden has raised his hand to make a comment. Is the council be interested in hearing that, or? So I need a motion and a second.
Procedurally, Mr. Mayor. I think
Actually,
it would
we've
be
got a motion.
Appropriate if you would, if whoever was the maker of the motion to withdraw it.
I think that's Karen.
I'll withdraw.
Okay. So
I'll
now we're back
withdraw my
to.
second.
Okay.
So now we're back to where if somebody wanted to make a motion to accept public comment.
Right. Okay. Do I have a
I
motion?
move that we accept public comment.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion to accept public comment from Councilmember Longoria, second from Councilmember Luss. So Mr. Linden, if you'd like to make a comment, you can just fill out a card afterwards.
Just real quick point of procedure here. This is an agenda item like any other agenda item on today's agenda. We accept comment cards on just about anything.
Right.
So, wouldn't it be appropriate for somebody who wants to comment to just fill out a comment card?
If that, I think what the city attorney would tell you is if that had occurred prior to the agenda item being called.
Oh, okay. All
That's
right.
the difference that we're.
Yeah, y'all
This is after all the
blew right
discussion.
past that part.
Well, sometimes we'd ahead of ourselves, so.
Mr. Mayor, just also procedurally, there was a motion and a second to allow the public comment. Can we take a vote on that?
I'm
please?
sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes
Okay,
unanimous.
good deal. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jack Linden. I live at 14810 East Bluff Road in Milton, and I'm sorry to cause the problem. A couple of quick comments to Joe's question about why this is a different type of organization. We started out as a volunteer organization. We are a volunteer organization, and we have grown to the point where there's no way that 7 members appointed by each of the 7 people could possibly accomplish what we do. So I think it needs to stay that way. The other point I would make is that the 3 officers you would be voting on this evening, 2 of them don't currently exist. We don't have a vice chairman because the vice chairman was made your sustainability coordinator for the city, so we lost her to the city. The second is that the chairman emeritus wasn't able to serve last year and has now stepped forward to serve. So if you vote on this, you will get those 3 officers in place. My understanding of the bylaw is that we can only begin to serve as those officers as of January 1 if there's a vote of the council to approve that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're still discussing this item, so if there's any discussion or we don't have a motion on the floor, if somebody wants to make a motion.
Yeah, I still think that there's some legitimate discussion that we can have regarding how we deal with Milton Groves Green. So I'll move that we defer this to January the 20th. Is that what we said? Yes. Okay.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to deferral until January 20th. Councilmember Longoria, second from Councilmember Thurman. There any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor and 2 opposed. Okay. Return to new business, back in new business. Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
The next item is consideration of a waiver of conflict regarding Jordan Davis LLP's relationship with Pond and Company in relation to the representation of the City of Milton in connection with Pond and Company for provisions of a signal modification design for State Route 9 at Bethany Bend. Agenda item number 15321. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much. I think as I had forecast at the time of the consent agenda that with respect to the work on the contract related to the signal modification design for State Route 9 in Bethany, I know that has the Milton on the other side of a contract with Pond and Company. I think it is appropriate, although our relationship with Pond is not that of attorney-client. It is more in the nature of we do joint participation on various solicitations for work in other jurisdictions, but we still have a relationship. It is important to raise that to the council, and otherwise, because of that relationship, ask that with respect to our work on a contract where Pond is on the other side, that you waive any potential or perceived conflict with respect to that. So that would be my request this evening, Mr. Mayor. We have come to you from time to time asking for this. In fact, I believe there was a prior instance with Pond as well that we have asked for it, and so I would ask for your consideration on
that. Okay. Any questions for Ken? Or Chris, do you have it? Okay.
No, I don't have anything to add. I would suggest the council approve.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 15-321.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion from Councilmember Coots, second by Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, all in favor. All right, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
Next item is consideration of the following subdivision plats. Rivers Edge subdivision, final plat, create lots 23 lots. Blue Valley subdivision phase 2B, final plat, create 22 lots. David and Stacy Jackson property, minor subdivision plot, create 2 lots. North Valley, minor subdivision plat, replat of 2 lots, unit 2. Oakmont at Crabapple, final subdivision plat, create 33 lots. Susan J. Wheatley, minor subdivision plat, create 3 lots. Sixto Omar Martinez Rivera and Jose Gabriel Montalva Alvarez, a minor subdivision plat, create 2 lots. Cambridge Estates, minor subdivision plat, create 3 lots. Manor View Phase 3, final plat, create 27 lots. Parkside at Silos, a final subdivision plat, create 14 lots. Collins Hill Farm, minor subdivision plat, create 3 lots. Agenda item number 15-322. Ms. Kathy Field.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In the past, we have included the consideration for approval of these plats as part of the consent agenda. and we thought that we would try something a little different in terms of better informing you about these subdivision plats as they move forward, and that we have provided you tonight. You should have essentially a listing of them with that are numbered and with an address as best we can ascertain for you, as well as the number of lots for each of these subdivisions. And the numbers are keyed to a map, which you should also have in front of you, which shows you essentially where these subdivisions are located. And it would be our intent periodically, as these subdivision plats move forward, to present these to you in this format.
I like it. I remember there was a point in time before we moved these to consent agenda where we used to get not the same information, but a little bit similar information. So I like this, and I think that given all the recent discussions that we've had, this brings a lot of good and important information to light and calls our attention to it. So I like that.
Right.
Bill?
Haven't had a chance to look at the map, but could you tell me, or is it on the map here, the acreage in these different plots, or at least the ones with more than 20 lots in
this spreadsheet does not include acreage, and I definitely think that's something that we should include in the future. And what I would be happy to do is, subsequent to this meeting, to send you this listing with not only the number of lots, but the actual acreage included as well. And then in the future, we'll make sure that we have the acreage included.
Could you make a guesstimate, possibly on the River's Edge subdivision? According to the map here, it looks it's quite a lot larger than probably all of the others combined.
Yeah, I really couldn't, because again, obviously it's at least 23 acres, but again, depending on the topography and whatnot and the site constraints, I couldn't tell you how much additional acreage is included in that
Fair enough.
plat.
It looks to me like the majority, other than maybe number 5, are probably in a AG1 area, so it's obviously going to be 1 acre plus lots. Is that a safe bet?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm. But I do like the format, and again, if you could add the acreage, that would certainly give it.
Obviously,
you can send that out to us too.
Yeah, they'd be 1 acre, so at least 23 acres. But then, of course, all the additional land needed for infrastructure and any topo limitations or stream limitations would have to be included as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Karen?
I noticed that on the information that was passed out right before the council meeting, a couple of these differ slightly from what was actually in our packet. When a motion is made, how do we go about doing that? Because like number 6, here it says create 2 lots, and over here it says 3 lots actually in our packet. And on number 9, Manor View, it says 27 lots in our packet and 26 lots here. Is that, I just want to make sure we're with whatever motion is made, we are consistent.
And that's just a matter, when I did talk to our staff member today, he did bring that to my attention and felt that whatever was the larger number is what should be approved, and that way it would include all the lots that were within the subdivision. So for the one for Manor View, that should read 27 lots as opposed to 26.
So what you're saying is we would be basing this on our packet versus not the information handed out?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Kathy, just to clarify that, because the Blue Valley subdivision Phase 2B Birmingham Highway was handed out, has create lots 209 Through 230. Oh, I got you. Through 230.
21
yeah,
versus
I got you.
22.
I got you. Okay, so I got it.
So it looks fairly close,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a couple that might
I
be
just
one
want to make
off.
sure that we weren't doing something that,
In this world, I don't like fairly close.
Yeah.
This
Well,
world,
when I
it's
say,
only
no, I say
yes.
fairly, the
No.
two are fairly close, but
So
we need to
I
be
guess
specific
I'll
on the
offer
one.
to the council that if you'd like to know the total number of acreage, this, like that other agenda item we just talked about, if you'd like to know the total number of acreage and you'd like us to be 100% certain with those numbers that we're providing and whatever you approve, there'd be no harm in bringing this back on January 4th with both of those answers.
I prefer that.
I'd like to see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I don't like to be sort of close.
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah,
We know about the hand grenade,
I know, it's the devil's in the details. So let us be certain about that. There's nothing, whether you take action on this tonight or on the 4th or on the 20th, for that matter. You do need to take the action on it, but there's nothing
So we
that's
need to
being...
defer this then to the 4th?
Just if you defer this to the 4th, we'll bring back both those answers.
Question, does that stop people from moving forward
No.
with this?
Nope.
No.
It does not.
Okay.
These are all by right developments, and it's just they've typically gone on the consent agenda. But we thought in light of the discussions that are happening publicly, anytime we can show a map of where the development is occurring before the development happens, we'll maybe start to work on some of those. Well, I just started to see the trees come down and didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea, Bill said too, to have the acreage listed on there.
Yeah,
So Mayor, I'll make a motion to defer agenda item number 15-322 to the January 4th meeting.
Second.
Okay, got a motion for deferral to January 4th from Councilmember Longoria with a second from Councilmember Morrig. Any discussion?
I would just like to
Karen?
say, in addition to the acreage, I'd like to have maybe the density put on there too, just so that
Oh, sure. Okay. That's,
it's easy enough to calculate.
yep.
Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
Our fifth item is consideration of a resolution of the Milton City Council consenting to the expansion of North Fulton Community Improvement District. Agenda item number 15-323, Mr. Chris Lagerblum.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution that the CID has asked us to bring forward. It's important to highlight on the front end that adopting this resolution does not impact Milton. The CID is seeking to expand in areas outside of Milton, but because we have properties that are inside of Milton in the CID, we have to consent to that expansion. So the expansion of the CID into other areas in Roswell and Alpharetta is what's being contemplated by adopting this resolution. It's required that we consider it. I'd ask you to approve it. Again, it does not impact any additional properties in the city of Milton. It is a formality at best.
Okay. Have any discussion? Bill?
Yeah, I'd like to compliment Ann Hanlon on her work, and it looks like she's brought in a tremendous amount of land out there, and only regret that Milton wasn't part of that. But she's doing a heck of a sales job out there.
I'd agree. I wish I was sitting here saying this doesn't impact Milton, but it in fact doesn't.
Okay.
I would agree with that. As one Notre Dame grad to another, she does a good job.
You had to bring school into it, didn't you?
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to approve agenda item number 15-323.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Kuntz with a second from Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
Next item is consideration of the City of Milton Strategic Plan 2016 to 2020. Agenda item number 15-324, Mr. Chris Lagerblum.
Mayor and Council, this is the strategic plan brought back for your consideration. We had this on the work session agenda from Monday a week ago. We provided you with kind of paper copies of where we were with the strategic plan. We took the takeaway from that meeting of the word reinvent as opposed to reestablish the Historic Preservation Commission. Other than that, I hope you've had time to look through and digest the strategic plan. It is focused in areas of economic development, parks and recreation, enrichment, strategic, efficient, and engaged government, preserve what makes Milton unique, and build community connections. We've tried to show both visually and with text those things that are initiatives that work towards those goals in support of the objective, and that we are showing you what year that we plan on handling, or what year we see that these strategic items will occur in the future. This is a 5-year plan. Its foundation was built in the time that we were together as the council and council retreat at the YMCA with staff's participation as well. I'd ask that, I guess I'll ask if there's any questions, any feedback, any direction, and would seek your support in approving the strategic plan that would go into effect January 1st.
Okay. Have any questions or comments? Bill?
Maybe a general comment, and I've tried to go through this in detail, but I think there's an overriding approach or concept that we need to take, and I think it's in the communication area. And Chris, if you could point out any of the specifics as far as communication initiatives in here, I'd appreciate it.
We've got, and I guess I'll look to our staff as well to help with being able to point to that's in the room. Many of these are grounded in the communication. I mean, if I turn to page 11 and say establish a 311 system for the creation of simple one-touch customer service system, I mean, that's an example of an item that would be in communication with the city. Is there something specifically that you're looking for that either we didn't include or we should write an initiative for?
I guess more from the standpoint of getting information out on any initiatives we're trying to pursue, and speak to this CSO issue that has been on the forefront here for months on end. And I believe it's the city's responsibility to take the initiative to address any inaccuracies, misstatements, prevarications relating to an issue like that, the CSO, or any other initiative that we're proposing. And unfortunately, with our social media as it has developed here in the last several years, people put stuff out on social media that's inaccurate. They twist, they have a tendency of twisting facts. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And I think that's our responsibility to present a factual basis on anything we put out there. And I would encourage us to possibly set something up like Milton Snopes or Fact Checks or PolitiFact or something along that line that might address this issue.
Good feedback. Yes, we do live in a fast-paced world where information moves faster than sometimes we can catch it. And the world of social media is something that is going to be with us for a long time, and unfortunately, just because it ends up out there on the internet, it doesn't mean it's necessarily always true. One thing we want to be very careful of, though, is that we don't cross that border between what we believe is fact and what we try to convince others that their opinion should match our fact. So yes, we're cautious with that. I can tell you that there is some objectives here in the plan that deal with proactive and open communication. It deals with building a sense of pride in the community, and I think communication is important. So we see eye to eye on a lot of what you just said. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out exactly what position the city should take as fact, because your fact might be different than my fact, which might be different than the mayor's fact, which might be different than Ken's fact. So we have to be careful that we don't take a factual position that might represent the opinion of not necessarily the entire body of the council. So we're mindful of that, and points well made.
I guess just to add to that, and I understand the balance, but one example comes to mind where people, and this would be a concern of mine, if they quote the city as stating something, or city official, and we're not talking about public officials being accused of different things, but if someone makes a statement saying that a city director or someone made a statement, and that statement is factual and it goes in our legal organ, I would ask that we take action to correct that and get that out there and clarify, because I think we had one instance where someone did make that accusation and it was not true, and it's gone like wildfire across the internet using the same fact, which wasn't a fact to begin with. So I would just ask for consideration when we go forward. If we catch something or we scour our legal organ, we may not be able to do everything on Facebook, but when we see something that isn't truthful and it is a fact, verifiable fact, then we put the fact out and basically correct it, whether it's a letter to the editor or a clarification. I think we owe that to the city and to our citizens when someone misquotes someone and puts us in a bad light. And again, that's not a public official. If someone is accusing us of something, this is if someone is misquoting what was stated.
I think I support what you're saying, Rick. I just want to make sure I'm hearing it right. You're saying when somebody from the city gets misquoted,
when someone, yeah.
But so let's say Chris was making a statement at a city council meeting, and we've got somebody from the Milton Herald who's our legal organ for the city, and they transcribe the meeting notes, quote Chris, and attribute the wrong words to Chris. You're saying you want us to follow up with the Milton Herald to set them straight. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying something to that effect, because we had an instance where it wasn't a transcribed issue. It was someone making a statement quoting one of our city employees.
Well, that's where I want to make sure I understand, because now if you're saying that what you're really worried about is somebody, a citizen of Milton, misquoting something that happened at a meeting, that's going to be a whole different ballgame, right? I mean, because I don't know how we could track all that down, how we could deal with all of that.
Well, I think, and that's, I guess, where I said from a social media standpoint, I guess I'd agree. I don't know how you control that, but if it's put in a paper where there's limited publication, in those cases, I think we do have a chance to actually respond if we see something where something is put forward as fact that isn't fact.
I would think it's fairly typical. If the paper misquotes something or whatever, we could certainly contact them and have them retract it or do some kind of letter.
You know, we have certain liberties with the newspaper. We'll never get in the way of their First Amendment right to print what they feel is the appropriate thing to print in a story.
No, I think that could be
we can
quote.
certainly work with them or bring something to their attention. I think very specifically, and I'll address head on the item that I think Rick is talking about, which is a quote that may or may not have come from Kathy Field as it relates to the conservation subdivision ordinance whenever it's coming forward. If you reread that story, you'll see that what, at least in my opinion, when I reread it and made a recommendation, is that it's not actually a quote of our staff member. It's the educated opinion of the author of the article as to what he deducted after having interviewed one of our staff members. That's a very different thing than putting quotes around and attributing it to a person. And again, you kind of, in my mind, and I guess I'll look to this council, you kind of balance that against how much good can you do and where can you do it, and does a retraction or even a modification in a future paper, is it worth it? Does that affect what happened potentially weeks ago? When this was brought to my attention, that paper was more than 2 months old, I believe, and that it's difficult to react to that. So I'm all for accuracy in reporting, and I believe that it's absolutely appropriate. And I would look to the council that if you see something that's not accurate and you want, as a council, want to try to correct it, or you want to direct me to correct it or attempt to correct it, I'm certainly open to that feedback.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely.
I would agree. I think in that particular situation, if we have things that are flying around that, obviously as a city, we have First Amendment rights as well to create what our state status is, even though we don't necessarily know exactly what the final outcome of the motion of the ordinance was going to be. We at least knew what was not true. And so if we had an opportunity to state exactly what was and what was not with regards to that particular situation, it would have just made things a lot easier with regards to just understanding what was actually out there. So I agree with Rick's statement. I agree with Bill's as well. Just, I don't think we should be afraid to actually state in a position, if we could, not infringing on another person's right to say whatever they want, but we still have a right to say, as a city, what is accurate.
Or at least another way to approach it may not be you're going back against someone and what they're quoting, but at least state this is what's under consideration. In an article it was purported that, or was stated that this, even though it's someone's statement, especially, I don't think it happens all that often, but when we've had situations like this that have been very charged and very public, I think we want to try to get out front with not taking a position on an ordinance or whatever, but if there are facts associated with it, that we clarify those and get those on record. Because I guess my concern is, I don't know if the rest of the council shares it, concern is in the absence of being proactive in communication, then the untruths become the truth, because we're not saying anything to get out front. And I think in this case, because we're talking about it, the concern was you have a 22-page document that most of our citizens are not going to read, but they may pick up the paper and read this quote, and they read that quote as a statement. We could maybe just go, in those cases, just say, just to clarify, here's what is under consideration with the CSO, especially if it's grossly different from what is on record.
And I would just say, though, we need to take it and come on ourselves, because, it's hard for staff if there's opinions going one way or the other. If we, either individual or council, feel differently, and we have open, transparent meetings, we need to jump on it quick. Everybody, we may have a different opinion, but you're certainly welcome, in a meeting to address it, or write a letter or make a statement, because it may, maybe we either all agree on it or don't. But again, I think Chris is open to addressing the issues with council, but it's got to be careful to make sure that it's, it's not one person's opinion, but it's everybody's direction, if that makes any sense. Joe?
So, in the context of the strategic plan for 2016 to 2020, are we saying that we need to have some kind of additional work being done on accuracy of the public media? Is that what we're suggesting? Or maybe I missed something, because I thought we started off talking about the document of the strategic plan, and now we've gone down this.
I think we started down talking about communication, which is one of the strategic plan topics, and this.
That's my point. We want to add this to the strategic plan. Is that what we're suggesting?
Well, I might make a suggestion, just a process, as a matter of business, which we had done this early on. Maybe our communications department, grabs all the anything that has to do with Milton, and if it's any pertinent stuff, pass it on to council immediately, as well as staff, if that makes any sense, to at least
maybe one way we could address it, maybe one of the better ways to address it, is if you all approve the strategic plan and this becomes our strategic direction, we will be doing departmental plans to nest up underneath the strategic plan, and that almost could be a tactic that would be captured in the communications department's plans.
I'd be okay with that.
Well, I'd say that's an overreaching policy that we need to adopt with the different departments.
Okay. Anything else? And I'll open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make motion that for agenda item 15-324, we adopt the city's Milton strategic plan of 2016 to 2020 as presented.
Okay. Second. Have a motion for approval from Councilmember Morrig, second from Councilmember Kuntz. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on. I want to take this opportunity to tell everybody here and our staff and in the audience, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We won't be meeting till after that, or Happy Holidays if that's your choice. But just appreciate everything everybody's done this year and look forward to next year. So
I say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that's why I said Merry Christmas first
Thank you
time.
for all the hard work and support this past year.
All right, guys.
Matt? Still on mayor and council reports?
Yeah.
I think one thing I'd like to do and that we need to consider as well, obviously we had a pretty interesting, we had a vote a couple weeks ago and with regarding to the conservation subdivision ordinance, and what I heard then was that we had something before us that we needed to have rewritten. As a council, I think that we need to come to a decision on that. If there is rewriting in the process, I think that we might need to add that to the agenda on the January 11th work session, so that if we are going to do it, we need to decide what it is we're doing.
Okay. Karen?
I did attend the first CPAC meeting last week. The good news is that under the DCA, the whole process has been shortened greatly. What's been required has been shortened greatly. We have to be done by October of 2016. So it will not be a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year process that it was previously. And I did remind everyone there that what goes in it is very important, because we did a conservation subdivision ordinance, because that's what last time the comprehensive plan said we ought to look at, and we tried. So for them to give a lot of thought to whatever we put into it, because what is put into it is what staff used to go forward as far as the vision for the city. So, but we will be done in October.
Good deal.
Smooth sailing to you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Only thing, unfortunately, Mayor and Council, I sent you an email this morning that I unfortunately have to report is the passing of Judge Matoney over the weekend. A longtime public servant to the North Fulton area, specifically in Alpharetta, as well as Milton. Sat on our bench and served the citizens of Milton on a regular basis when he was serving as a judge. The memorial service for Judge Matoney is tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the Alpharetta First United Methodist Church. I'll be attending if anybody wants to attend. Just ask, maybe because it anticipated to be a crowd, that you meet me here so that we can carpool together and limit the number of cars that are there. That, unfortunately, is, I got to deliver the unfortunate news tonight. We'll do our department updates and close out this calendar year. Just want to say Merry Christmas as well. Look forward to a great new year. We'll start with Chief Edgar.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to start off with our new portable radios. We purchased those, and we reprogrammed them and placed them in service. So, and with communications being critical to firefighter safety, thank you for your support on that purchase. One of the other things, our plan is for our old radios to repurpose those for other city departments, as well as our upcoming CERT program, and then we will go ahead and sell whatever remaining radios that we don't have any use for. We are working on an active shooter policy for the department that will coincide with the police department, so we make sure that we're not doing anything that's different or interferes with their operation. But what we're doing is looking to identify a unified command program, staging of units, and communications. And our crews now are learning, or not learning, but I guess relearning the START program, which is a simple triage and a rapid treatment program, and it's used for triage multiple patients. Now, we do that yearly anyway, so we're going to go ahead and do that again and make sure that we're proficient in that. And then we're doing pre-plans on soft targets within the city. We do pre-fire plans on all commercial buildings in the city now anyway, but we're just going to kind of tweak that towards some of the soft targets, just identifying staging locations and such, so we know if we ever have to go into a building like that, we'll be prepared, we'll have the plans, we'll know where we're going. We are seeking grant opportunities through FEMA and the Assistance Firefighters Grant Program. And what we're looking for is a piece of fire apparatus. And one of the reasons that we cannot use that for a new piece of apparatus, such as our ladder truck that we purchased, is the grant program only takes in consideration a piece of apparatus that was not originally purposed for fire apparatus but was actually configured and used as a piece of fire apparatus, such as our T-Layer truck. That was a donation from Atlanta Gas and Light, and what we did is converted that to a T-Layer rescue truck that would respond to large animal rescue events. So what we're going to do is apply for a grant for a medium rescue truck that will actually take the place of that donated vehicle, which is particularly very old at this point. But it serves our purpose, but here's an opportunity for us to get a new piece of apparatus and use that for that program. The Milton Fire Department has also partnered with the North Fulton Cities and the Safe Kids of North Fulton program. And what that program does is it puts together training programs with the other North Fulton cities and other fire departments on injuries for children. So we'll look at child safety seats, bicycle safety, water safety, fire safety, those kind of events. So we're going to do that together as a group in the 5 cities in North Fulton, in the 5 departments. We've received the final drawings on the new ladder truck, and they were signed off. The construction starts next month, and we still have an expectation of the summer, June, July delivery on that vehicle. And we've already mentioned in the past about the pancake breakfast, but I want to thank our staff, city staff that assisted with that, as well as everybody who attended. So thank you. It was a great success, and we look forward to next year again, even larger. So
how many pounds of bacon and how many pancakes did we serve?
I don't know how many pancakes, but I know we cooked 60 pounds of bacon, and every piece of that was gone. So
great.
I haven't had a piece of bacon since.
Great event. Thank you so much. I mentioned to one of the firefighters, I said, this is great. We should do it every month. And he just looked at me and said, do you guys really hate us that much? But they did a great job. It was, and the community absolutely loves it. So
yeah, we're still getting emails, and we actually this afternoon a resident stopped by with a cake that said thank you for the pancake breakfast. So they really enjoyed it. It's a real crowd pleaser for the community. So.
I mean, I guess if the police had one, maybe you could get a couple of pounds of bacon or something.
Department by department. Yeah, we could have
a little competition, right?
Just had to throw that dig in there, Chief. And
Yeah, Chief, what is a fire pre-plan? I was looking at that and just want to get clarified. It's the second from the bottom on your monthly stats list.
What we do is we go out to all commercial buildings, such as Home Depot, Walmart, the schools, churches and stuff like that. And what we'll do is we'll walk through there and actually draw the floor plan for that particular building, identifying exits, where the utilities are located, where our standpipe connections are. So in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, we get that fire. We're able to pull that plan up on our computer, and the battalion chief can pull that up and look at the building and get a kind of a view of where the problem is. And then if they know where the fire is, they can start directing crews in that direction.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Good effort. Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you, Chief.
Very good. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Good deal. We'll move on to finance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have anything as glamorous as the fire department, but we are looking to.
For the fire department. You can write them checks.
Very true. Watching over their funding, but we are in the time of year where we're kind of relicensing all of our businesses. So the alcohol beverage licenses were due on November the 15th, and they had till December the 15th to not come in front of you guys. And luckily, everyone's come in and is in compliance, and we are in the process of issuing the last few of those. We're waiting for a few pouring permits to be renewed. So we are good to go with that. Our next process is to renew the actual business license itself. The businesses have until March 31st of 2016. That's to give them time to get their taxes together for those gross receipts businesses. And we have in place, per the last discussion we had a few months ago, a better timeline that if they do not comply, that we will be consistent with all businesses in what we will do as far as warnings and citations. So there'll be no confusion going forward with that. And lastly, we're just preparing for the audit. It's our really busy time in finance, so everyone else is kind of getting ready for the holidays, and we're just working away. We've been working with all the departments to get all of our data in order and tidy, and so that will begin on January the 25th. Our auditors will be out here doing their field work. It lasts about 2 weeks long. And then they'll go back, prepare, and we'll do everything else via email and phone calls, and then the CAFR will be prepared. So that's really it for us this year. Any questions?
No,
Excellent.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
I can tell you that the whole city is working really hard, not just the finance department.
Okay, next.
We don't have an information technology update, I don't believe, tonight with Dave out of town, but let's move to innovation engagement, communications world, and then we'll finish with Sam. Angela.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for all of you that came out to all of our holiday events. It was a busy month for us. We had about 100 people at our tree lighting. This on your report, it should say Christmas in Crabapple. I guess that was cropped out. We had about 800 people attend that event, which was, to say the least, last year we had about 70 attend, so we grew a good bit. The pavilion was a huge hit with that. Breakfast with Santa, we estimated about 600. We could have had more with 60 pounds of bacon, and we ate over 1,200 pancakes. So that's to say, and the amount of syrup that we went through was outrageous as well. Better Together had a record attendance at their holiday event. They had 38 come out to the Thomas S. Bird House, which was pretty impressive. Better Together continues to grow, and I think it's fantastic to see everyone getting involved. And they collected toys for North Fulton Community Charities Santa Shop. We also collected them at City Hall and all of our fire stations, and Nothing But Cakes joined in and contributed, I would believe, a box truck full. Yes, a box truck full that they picked up from all the stations. Better Together is changing up their 2016 meetings. They'll be meeting on the second Monday of each month. I know that still will deter you from being able to go because of work sessions, but just wanted to let you all know they'll be at 6:30 p.m. at Bethwell Community Center. And our next upcoming event is the Mayor's Run, and that's on February 27th at 7 a.m. in Freedom Park.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, I would just echo, all the events turned out really good, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thanks for everything.
We'll finish it with the ever entertaining and always engaging Resource Department.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. That was interesting.
And here I was honored to finish up 2015 in front of these guys. The performance management system is coming along. We're working with the Alliance for Innovation in a group project on doing performance management. The last meeting we talked about core competencies and what are going to be included in those. So looking forward to that project coming along well and being good in 2016. We're shooting for a finish date in April, so it'll be available for evaluations the next time. Speaking of evaluations, all of our evaluations from 2015 are in with just a couple of exceptions. So that's finished up for the year as well, how our employees did. Hopefully next month I'll have a little bit of a report and letting you know how our employees graded out. And finally, the wage study that we're looking to hire a consultant for went out to bid. We're expecting those responses back into HR on January the 5th and hopefully get that in front of you shortly thereafter. Any questions I can answer?
Any questions? Nope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
It's better if you get no questions, Sam, in your line of work. Okay. If anybody has anything else,
That's all I've got. Council City Hall will remain open this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. It'll be closed on Thursday and Friday. I am not traveling this holiday season, but I'm going to try to spend some time with family next week and look forward to re-engaging in the new year. So thank you for the last meeting of the year.
all right, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.